Happy birthday, Ben!
Woo!
Hello, everybody. Welcome to this special episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we usually watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. But today is a special day because today Benjamin was born in the year of our Lord 1999.
Best year.
Not the best year. The best year is, well, I'm not going to say that. Anyway, what are we doing today, Ben?
Well, first of all, I gotta say, you doing the intro correctly on one of these holiday episodes was really the best present I could have asked for.
I know, and that's the only reason I did it is because it's
the
for your
only
birthday.
reason you did it.
From now on, I'm not doing it again.
Completely out of spite. So, if you don't know the rules for like birthday episodes, Birthday Boy gets to choose, essentially. So, last year Bob chose the Blob remake, and then I chose Dude Bro Party Massacre 3.
Yep.
We did skip 1 and 2, I know, but the third one's my favorite. And, you know, it's a hard choice.
It
Because
is.
You have, your options are basically open to any movie.
They're limitless.
And Bob was asking me the other day, because his birthday's coming up in a couple months. He was like, what am I allowed to choose? And I was like,
Yeah.
as long as you can sell it to me as vaguely horror related, you can put it on the board.
Yeah.
So I don't know what we're watching for you yet.
I haven't picked. Well,
Yeah.
I've told Ben this. This is coming out in the middle of probably season 11.
Yeah.
It depends on what my categories for season 12
Middle of
look
season
like.
11. Back end of season 11.
Well, I guess it would be the end of season 11.
Yeah.
But it depends on what categories I pick for season 12.
That's
what
fair.
I'm going to pick for my birthday.
But yeah, I had a lot of trouble this year because, again, there's a ton of movies I'd love to watch on the podcast.
Yeah.
And there's so many that, like, it's just one of those things where it's, like, too many options. But I was kind of going through a list of, like, films I like, and eventually I kind of went down the rabbit hole of looking at all the films I own. Not necessarily in disc, but, like, also on, like, different streaming sites and stuff that I bought for myself and not on the podcast. And, I found one I watched a while ago. I think we talked about it on a specific episode where I talked about watching a movie at work because we had a lot of downtime one night.
Oh, yeah. This was a while ago.
It was a long time ago. I don't know what season that was, like maybe 8 or something. And I was like, Bob, I just watched this movie. I can't tell you anything about it because it'll go on the board eventually, but it's going to make you shit your pants.
Oh, no.
And I don't know what category it's going to be in because I'll let you know right now, Bob. I got my category for season 12 picked out. I picked it out, what?
Forever ago.
Maybe first week of this season. And I got season 13 picked out too. So
Good Lord, bro's really thinking ahead.
yeah, sometimes I'll have dry seasons where I don't know what to pick, and then other times I'll just find something and I'm like, well, that's what we're doing in 2 to 4 months. But, you know, to keep a long story short, today we are going to watch a little feature that I assume Bob's never heard of before. But we are watching a film from 2018.
Okay, so it's newer.
So it is newer, entitled Butterfly Kisses.
What the fuck is this?
Not to be confused with, I think there's another movie called Butterfly Kisses from 2004.
Ben, I swear to God, if this is a killer bug movie.
It's the Butterfly Effect. That's the one from 2004. If it's a killer what? Butter movie?
Killer bug movie.
Oh.
I'll lose my mind.
I thought you said butter. And
No.
I was like,
No. Well, the killer butter might be why they're recalling it from the Costco.
yeah, we went to the coffee shop before this, and apparently Costco recalled 80,000 pounds of butter.
Which is a ludicrous amount of butter. No one should ever have that much butter.
But yeah, we're watching Butterfly Kisses. I think it's a nice little indie film, so I'm really excited to show it to you because I think this film doesn't get enough love.
Okay.
Because I think very few people have heard of it, honestly.
I'm very scared, Ben.
In fact, I like this film enough that I own it on YouTube because that was like the only site I could get it on when I first watched it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to get a Blu-ray for it. So I actually
Damn.
own it. But let's get into it. Description. Don't blink.
Don't blink.
Don't blink.
What are these? What are the angel things from fucking Doctor Who? Weeping Angels?
Weeping Angels?
Yeah.
Yes. You were like halfway to the real name.
I kind of knew.
It's an hour and 31 minutes long.
A normal length movie.
We've had a lot of not normal length movies this season. It's been a bog.
Tough.
It's not rated.
Oh, that's not good.
Review scores. Again, these are probably going to be a little off because I don't think it's a very well-known film.
Mhm.
So who reviews it and stuff like that is kind of hard to get to. But IMDb gave it a 5.9 out of 10.
That's not bad.
A tomato meter score of 100%.
100% is crazy.
And an audience score of 63%.
Okay.
Awards, 2 wins and 0 nominations. Notable actors. None of these people are really famous, but I'll mention them anyways. There's Rachel Armiger as Sophia Crane. She was actress in Revan. Reed DeLeese as Feldman. They were Cuba de Ayer waiter in Love Different. Matt Lake as Mr. Folklore. He was Roderick Baines in What Happens Next Will Scare You. Eve Young as Dr. Wolf. They were Aunt Edith in Space Specs. Kelsey June Swan as Lily Pine. She hasn't done anything else. Seth Adams Kallick as Gavin York. He was Seth Gallick in 8 Ball Clown 2. Eileen Del Valle. She was Amelia York. She also played Allison and Roulette. Janice Wellen as Eve Hunkeler. She was Hester in Road Rage. Alexandria Benford as Reporter. She was Taylor in Escaping Ohio. Eric Christopher Myers as himself. He was also Eric in 8 Ball Clown 2. And then finally, last but not least, the only person Bob's going to know from this whole list of actors, Eduardo Sanchez as himself. You might know him as the director of the Blair Witch Project.
What is he doing in this movie?
This is an indie film, and I believe the rundown of what happened is that the director showed the script to Eduardo Sanchez, and he liked it. So he's like, yeah.
No, that's cool.
Writer and director, it's Eric Christopher Myers. So he's technically in this film for a little bit. He also wrote and directed Roulette, and I just want to note this now. It's kind of sad. He passed away in 2021.
Damn.
Which is really depressing because, like, this movie's really good, and I would have liked to see other stuff from him. Budgets unknowns. I don't think there was a box office because I think this wasn't in theaters.
Mm-hmm.
Country of origin, United States. And the tagline is, "The camera doesn't lie." Now,
Okay.
kind of the one thing I want to get into before we start the movie, and I do have a fact for after, so if you remember to ask me that. But apparently the original film was 3 hours long,
Oh my god.
but it was eventually cut down to its current runtime, which
So cut in half.
I think is a lot more manageable. More than half, because it's only an hour and... Oh, it's a little bit over half.
Yeah.
I was thinking it was an hour and 21 minutes. But yeah, I'm really excited to show you this film today. It's going to be cool.
I'm excited, but also quite scared now.
Yeah, the don't blink, did that tip you off? You're going to be freaked out?
Yeah, the don't blink thing did kind of get me. I'm going to be for real. I'm kind of terrified. Because, like, there's something about, like, Weeping Angels as a concept. I've never seen Doctor Who, but I know what they're about. Like, if you look at them, they won't move and attack you, but if you aren't not looking, they'll kill you.
Yeah, it's Peanut from the SCP. You know
Oh.
Peanut?
No, I didn't.
What is that? What number is that?
But basically, the idea of something like that is truly horrific to me. Like, that actually scares the shit out of me as an idea.
It's number 173, by the way.
Oh my god. I don't know anything about SCPs.
If you don't know it, guys, that's a little, like, horror short story fandom.
Yeah.
Whatever.
There's a lot of them.
Oh, yeah, we're in the thousands now. But Peanut's just like a little guy.
Oh my god, that thing is horrific.
He looks like a peanut.
He does kind of look like a peanut, but in the worst way possible.
Oh, do you want to... That's his old design. Do you want to see
Oh
the
my
new
God.
design?
Why are we talking about Peanut on the podcast?
Well, so it has a point. Peanut's kind of the same thing where, like, he only moves when you're not looking at him. So, like a Weeping Angel.
Okay. I guess we'll see you guys after the movie.
All right, we'll see you in a little bit.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching Butterfly Kisses.
Yeah. So, what do you think, Bob? It was kind of hard to judge your reaction.
Scary movie.
Was it a scary movie? I couldn't tell if you liked it or not.
I did like it,
Okay.
but it was also very scary.
Good.
And the best way to describe this film is it gives the same vibes as a film that we've not seen in a very long time on the podcast.
We're not going to get into which one yet, but I know exactly which one you're talking about.
And that was what was scary.
All right. With that being said, I think we're going to do our usual spiel. I'm glad you liked it, but we're going to do a brief rundown of the film, and then we're going to get into actual spoiler territory and talking about it. I'd highly recommend you go watch this first. Not only because, again, part of the reason I'm putting it on here is because I think more people should know about it. It's kind of a cool little film. But also, go ahead and watch it because I think it's one of those films that really builds up its story as it goes along.
Yeah.
And
it's a slow burn for sure.
getting spoilers is really going to, I think, kill some of that for you.
Mm-hmm.
Because there's some good reveals there as it progresses. But with that being said, what this is about is it's a, found footage movie. It's essentially like this story about a guy who finds this footage and is trying to put like a movie together about it. And the footage is all about these kids who are investigating this urban legend, kind of like in Blair Witch, but instead of the Blair Witch, it's the Blink Man. And if that sounds interesting, go check it out. The only place it was streaming on a couple months ago was like YouTube or something. I mean, everyone has that. I think there's probably a couple other places that have it now, but I think it's worth a watch, so check it out. With that being said, we're going to get into talking about stuff. Do you want to start? You were talking about there's a film that this reminded you of.
Yeah, this film reminds me of, Lake Mungo.
Yeah.
In a lot of the same ways. A very similar vibe.
And the fact that it's like a documentary film.
Yeah, so this would have gone really good in like that category in season 2.
I know, but I found it after that, so I was like,
that sucks,
damn.
dude.
And I was like,
this would have hit. This would have been really good in there.
And that's why I didn't know where I'd put it on the board again, and I wanted to do it for my birthday. One of the films I actually thought you were going to compare it to is One Cut of the Dead.
Oh, it is similar to that.
Because, look, I don't think this is the best film ever.
No.
But I'm definitely a sucker for some of the things this film does.
Mm-hmm. Me too.
And what it does that I really enjoy, and I always think is super cool to see in a movie like this, is that it's like a super meta found footage movie.
Oh, it's so meta.
It's, a hat on a hat. And we watched One Cut of Dead season 2? Season 1?
No. After
Zombies. It was in Zombies, Bob.
No fucking way.
Right?
No.
It was in Zombies.
No, it was in found footage films somewhere else.
No, it wasn't. It was in Zombies.
It wasn't in Zombies. There's no way we watched that in the first season of the
show.
show.
No, it was in J-Horror. That's probably what it was.
I was about to say, it was probably in Japanese horror, which is like season
3.
Yep,
it was. Sorry about that little tangent. Sometimes we forget when we covered stuff.
It's been a long time, Ben.
But not going to cover One Cut of the Dead here because that also has a lot of spoilers for it. But that's also kind of like a One Cut of the Dead is kind of one of those hat on a hat situations like this one.
It's a movie about making a movie.
Yeah. But this one's really cool because there's a lot of layers.
It's a lot, yeah.
So the first layer is it's these kids are making a documentary for their film school about a local urban legend. It's called The Blink Man. And then they're somewhere in Maryland.
Yeah.
I didn't pick up where. Somewhere around Baltimore, though. Then this guy, his name is what? Gabe?
Nope.
No?
G's correct. G-A is right.
I know, G-A is right. What was it? Gavin? Gavin? Okay. Gavin, who essentially finds those tapes and is compiling them into essentially a movie to quote-unquote get the footage out there, although it's a little questionable whether he's profiteering off of it. But like the actual movie that we're watching is technically these people making a documentary about Gavin.
Making a documentary.
And it's interspliced with some of his, documentary footage. And then at the end of the movie, it becomes a bit of a documentary about the documentarian, Eric, who's, by the way, played by the director.
Yeah.
Making his documentary about Gavin.
Yeah.
So on and so forth.
It's a lot.
But I love that kind of stuff, especially for found footage, because it's this fun thing where you get to look at the camera behind the camera. And I always think that's such a cool way to address
it's the
genre.
It's the best way to look at all the different layers and perspectives of found footage film.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like looking at the inside from the outside while also looking at the inside from the outside. It keeps going.
Yeah.
And that's what makes it cool.
It's cool because, found footage is really overdone at this point. We've talked about it before. We did Blair Witch a couple weeks ago for our convention prep. I think it came up there where like that genre has been overdone at this point, and there's like good found footage films out there. I really like them, but a lot of them are old and tired, and more importantly, you can't really rely on the trope of, oh, it's real anymore. And I think what this film really does that I really like with its whole layers of filmmaking is that each layer addresses, I guess, the criticism that someone would give about the layer beneath it.
Yeah.
So, like, Gavin does give some criticism about the footage he finds that I think someone would give if they're trying to see if it's real or not. Then a bunch of people give Gavin their own kind of commentary about the footage he's presenting them, and so on and so forth. And I think it's a good audience analog there.
It is, because I think a lot of what makes this film work so well is that it is constantly picking itself and the ideas behind it apart. And that makes it feel more real because it's presenting, because it's a situation in which like you're arguing with someone and they present reasons why they could be wrong. And then it's like strengthens their argument because they're able to admit that. And because the film admits that it could be fake, it makes me want to doubt it less, because why would it tell me that if it wants to be perceived as real? Which I think is super weird for a film to do, but it's really cool in this context.
It is really cool. Outside of that, I think the film itself, the way they present it as a documentary, it's really well done.
Good.
Um,
It feels very real.
It does. Even the break from like an actual documentary to like behind the scenes footage of the crew of the documentary all works really well. I think one of the biggest things they do that I think is really, really cool is the movie we watch is an intersplice of some like footage of Gavin, some footage that he found. But then it's also like interviews with people that are like actual people. We have their name and stuff. They're real people playing themselves. And we have them both talking to Gavin in the documentary, but also interviews outside of the documentary.
Yeah.
And it just really adds this layer of credence to everything. I mean, I think the coolest one is we have Eduardo Sanchez coming on there
Yeah.
and
Playing
talking
himself.
about it, both in the story and like outside in an interview. It just helps the film look like a real documentary in a way I think is hard to find in most documentary style found footage movies.
No, for sure. It definitely feels like something you would watch like really late night on the Discovery Channel. And that would come off as like real. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Back in 2008 when they were doing all those like mermaid and dragon stuff.
Yeah. No, it feels exactly like that, but in like the best way possible, because it feels kind of like unrefined and janky and polished, but that makes it feel real, which makes it very scary.
Yeah. I think the other thing that really helps it out with realism stuff is just some of the camera stuff.
Mm-hmm.
They use different types of cameras for each section. The most obvious one is the like student filmmaker camera, because they're using black and white footage. I forget which interviewee says it, but it's like, of course they use black and white footage. It's a stylistic thing for film students.
Mm-hmm.
It's also, they were recording on film and black and white's cheaper. But like when we switch to the documentarian stuff, it's color and it's a very different quality.
It's a digital camera, probably.
Or one of the original crew from the micro story, the 2004 story is what I'm going to call it for convenience sakes, has a video camera rather than a film camera. And that also looks different. And once again, using cameras like that have different quality really goes a long way in found footage films.
It does, because it adds credence to like making it feel like these students are putting a film together with what they have, rather than it being a professional thing. You know what I mean? Like the fact that they have two different styles of cameras, while that isn't going to look good and wouldn't be good for a movie, it makes sense because these are cheap kids trying to put something together with what they have.
Yeah, and I think one of the cool things that this film does with it is, you know, obviously the stuff that shot by the 2004 characters, the kids shooting this Blinkman documentary, doesn't look great.
No, it's
like
not
it's
very
not
good.
very professional, mostly because what we get of it is fairly unedited, except for the first segment, which I will say looks pretty decent.
I do like the first bit. Yeah.
And we'll get into that in a second, but we get to hear all these like actual people criticize the footage they do and compare it to like hoaxes and stuff, and I think that's really great. Like one guy gives this whole commentary on the fact that Gavin found the footage in a shoebox, but in the 2004 documentary, they very obviously like frame the shoebox, and he's like, that's such a hoax thing to do.
It feels too produced, and like things are just lucky. You know what I mean?
Ed Sanchez says, Eduardo Sanchez says like, hey, things like that don't happen in real life. The camera isn't just on when you need it
to be. Yeah.
And I think that's such a great summation of this film, because every single layer has the camera on right when they need it to be. And I think that's really cool.
I think probably the best part about this movie is, while we as the audience assume that everything we are being shown is real because of different things that happen, the movie does an amazing job at throwing in all of these different layers and meta elements to make it honestly 50-50 most of the movie, whether it's like the Blink Man is real and like is causing all these problems and doing all this crazy shit, or yeah, these kids made this movie and they made it up, and York is just trying to like use that to make money.
Yeah.
And it's a really tight balance between the two.
I think that's the most effective way they do these kind of meta found footage
Oh,
films.
absolutely. You have to do it that way.
And it's hard to pull off really well sometimes, and I think they did it really well here. If you have nothing more to say about that, I think I want to move on to one of the other really cool things about this movie, which is the Blink Man urban legend.
Oh, it's cool.
I think it is just a super cool concept for an urban legend.
It's very interesting for sure.
Like I said earlier, the intro of this film is essentially just like the 2004's intro footage for their documentary, and it's very well produced. And I think it's a great introduction to the concept of this film. It's kind of mirroring that scene from the Blair Witch where they go and they interview local townspeople about the Blink Man with some commentary from a urban legend expert talking about it. It's really cool. Essentially, it's this idea that like if you go to this specific tunnel and you stare down it for an hour, a Blink Man appears, and then every time you close your eyes, he gets closer and closer and closer. And then when he's really close, he flutters his eyelashes. And something that's called butterfly kisses right in front of your face to get you to do the last blink, and then you die, of course. And what I think is so cool about that urban legend, besides the fact that it's not like it's super original, but what I find super cool is that it's an actual like urban legend.
Oh, it's real?
Sort of.
Okay.
So it's kind of a convoluted story, and it's kind of hard to find information on. But from what I can find, the Blink Man is kind of a very small urban legend that had some popularity for a while, which is really cool. Like you can go online and you can find like some websites about it and stuff like that. But I think the coolest part is there's actually this interview with Myers, the director, where he actually talks about the fact that he made up that urban legend. And then he went on to like a bunch of different sites like Reddit and 4chan and probably made some internet like actual websites about the urban legend. And he was able to like essentially through all these various different accounts create his own urban legend.
That's so cool.
And he got the hype for that urban legend going before he released the movie. So it seemed like he made a movie about this new urban legend.
Oh my God.
And I think that's just like adding on to the whole meta narrative of this whole script, but I think it's just such a cool thing that he was able to do and shows like his dedication not only to this particular script, but I think the genre as a whole.
I mean, that's the draw of found footage movies, and what makes them scary is realism. And when you can remove yourself from the like ad campaigns and like normal PR of a film and do things that are wacky and outside of the park and sort of use the real world to create hype around a film in a way that feels natural and makes it feel more real, that just makes it scarier. And that I think that's part of why Blair Witch succeeded as well as it did. And I think it's a really cool way to market something like this.
Yeah. And I'll say, because this film isn't really well known, it does feel kind of like that. Like the only way you hear about it is word of mouth, which I think is a fun way because that's actually how urban legends go around. Let's see, what else is interesting about this film? I think the sound design's really cool.
The sound design is cool.
Because, you know, it's supposed to be a documentary, technically, about a documentary, but you get the point. So there's not a lot of, like, music and stuff.
Unless you're in the documentary parts.
And even then,
it's light.
It's very light, and it's only usually during, like, the interviews, like the floating head interviews. So, you know, in a lot of ways, there's no dramatic cues or something to build tension. But what I think the film does that is really, really effective, but also really cool, is that it has a lot of natural sounds from the camera and the footage essentially warping and glitching that I thought really effectively builds tension.
It works.
Especially in the back half of this film, where some of the sound effects get you really tense. And I think that's really, really great.
Yeah. No, I agree. I think it's really cool.
Of course, going to be another transition here, too. This story is a slow burn.
It is really slow.
I think that's going to be kind of the biggest problem a lot of people have with this movie, because it starts off essentially as like a real feeling documentary where we're just like actually following this guy, and there's nothing about it that is outright preposterous.
Mm-mm.
In fact, I would say up to the, I don't know, 50-hour minute mark, this feels like a very legitimate character piece on a guy who's
Not doing well.
not doing well and is also a bit of an asshole.
A bit is a stretch. He is a major dickhead.
Halfway through the movie, Bob turned to me, and I think this is like the only comment you made the whole time, and you were like, I hate this guy.
I do hate this guy. He sucks.
But yeah, like essentially for like in a whole hour, nothing happens. And then all of a sudden, it's like a switch, and there's just tension all over the place. And, I said at the beginning of this movie it was going to make Bob shit himself. But there's like, I want to say one really effective jump scare in this film. And
Mhm.
it's so effective because, like, I know it's coming, and it still, like, makes you jump. And that's hard to
You
get.
can see it coming from a mile away, but that's what makes it scary, is because you know it's coming.
And the film forcibly lowers the tension right before it happens.
Yeah.
I think that really does play into like how good this film is at staggering and building stuff up, because it starts really slow and then it keeps building even after those big jump scares and stuff.
Mm-hmm. No, I think my only like big complaint about this movie is, it spends all this time building it up and building it up, building up, and then there's this big release, and then the movie keeps going.
But I love the keep going part.
But the keep going is very good, but then I want another tipping point at the end of the movie.
I guess, but I think it's one of those things where they're trying to show that this isn't a concluded story, which is a very funny joke because the documentary crew's freaking out about not having a conclusion to their documentary.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what we get.
I don't know. I want another big payoff after the big scare.
Well, not to get too much into spoilers, but there is a post-credit scene.
I just wish that was in the movie.
Which was it is in the movie because it's the post-credit scene for Gavin's movie. It's after his credits.
Oh, I didn't even think about that because it's playing the credits for
Gavin's
movie,
film,
not
and
the real movie.
There's then a post-credit scene,
And then the real credits start playing.
And then the real credits, and that post-credit scene, I do think really tips off the piece.
I do think it works, but the fact that it is at the end of the credits kind of sucks because not everyone's gonna like skip through and watch it
because you can miss that. But I don't know. I thought it's a really effective way to end the movie, I will say.
It is
because it gives you a little tip.
Yeah.
In either direction.
I will say I do think the end before the first set of credits is really good too.
And yeah, the end before the first set of credits is really good.
But it's not like jarring in the same way. Like it's not a release of tension or pressure. It is just unsettling and scary.
No, it is very unsettling. And the reason it's unsettling is because I don't know if you picked up on this. I'm sure you did. But there's a through line for this whole piece.
Oh, yeah.
Through every piece of media we have, kind of one of the things that comes together is this overarching story that, yeah, so the Blink Man does kill you. Like, he gets really closer to you and he kills you. Which, by the way, done super effectively.
Oh, yeah.
Throughout the 2004 footage, we see him get closer and closer to the camera. And they do some review stuff. And it really is blink and you miss it.
Mm-hmm.
On a second rewatch, you see them the first time before they show them to you. And I always think that's really cool. But kind of the through line here is not just that the Blink Man kills you, but it's the fact that each of the people who've like recorded the Blink Man and become obsessed with him are like destined to have this spiral in I don't know, just their mentality that eventually leads to their inevitable death. And it seems to pass along with this footage. I think it's Gavin that says it the best, where he's like, the closer you get to the Blink Man, the closer he gets to you.
Oh, yeah.
Which I love because it's like, oh, there's actually some secret behind this urban legend. But it's really cool because you can notice the little side effects and how it
people
passes.
Who are been kind of exposed to the Blink Man slowly get more and more unraveled and like go a little crazy.
It jumps from Feldman in the 2004 documentary to his partner. Do you remember her name? Is it Sophia?
Yes, that sounds right.
Okay. It jumps from Gavin to Sophia.
Not Gavin.
not Gavin.
Feldman.
To Sophia. And again, it's really cool because we get to see Feldman's progression. But what's so cool about that is we eventually realize that Gavin's having the same progression
Yep.
from the movie he's making. And then it, of course, passes to Eric, the guy who's making this documentary. And I think that's such a cool little thing because you see them start to mirror the actions of each other. And the more we get to see,
Yeah.
the more we realize that, oh, this isn't a film about the Blink Man who gets closer to you and kills you. It's about like this obsession
With him.
that kills you.
Yeah.
Especially when we see Gavin theoretically do the same thing as Feldman.
Mm-hmm.
And this reference to, oh, we're going to find what Feldman did 10 years from now, which is that's the documentary that started all this.
Yeah. I mean, it basically is setting up that it's a cycle.
Yep. And again, there's other repeating stuff. Like they keep drawing this symbol with a circle with a cross through it.
Yep.
I assume that's like a don't blink symbol.
Yeah, like a closed eyeball or something.
You'll see people start sketching the Blink Man everywhere when they get really obsessed. But my favorite one, because it's like the most creepy, because it's not directly addressed in the film, is the fact that people related to this obsession start to disappear and distance themselves from those associated.
Yeah.
By the time, Gavin's associated with the project, everyone from the 2004 thing either won't mention it or won't talk about it or have disappeared.
And you
Like
can't
all the
find them.
information has disappeared.
Yeah.
And as Gavin's story progresses, you see that happen to him,
Mm-hmm.
which is pointed out by the documentary crew. And you can expect it's going to happen there too. I just thought that was a really cool extra detail
No, it is. It is really cool. I
And
like it a lot.
in a film full of tons of detail.
That is another big thing about this movie is it is chock full of details that if you like aren't paying attention or just like skip over stuff, you will miss it. And that's what I think makes the movie so good.
Yeah, it's one of those films where I can really tell the director was super knowledgeable about the style he was dipping his toes into
Oh yeah.
and was really, really wanting to make a very tight script. I
mean
think he
everything
definitely
is
succeeded.
super duper intentional, right?
Yeah, I'd be interested what the 3-hour cut was like
The 3-hour cut probably goes insane.
because, look, I understand the reason to cut it down. 3 hours is a long time, and this is a very slow movie
Mm-hmm.
that builds up very slowly, but there's just so much there. It'd be interesting to see what else he did with that runtime.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else you could have done with an hour and a half. Like, how much more is there?
I assume there would just be more character stuff for each different layer,
Probably, yeah, right?
which is cool. I definitely think we don't need it. Like,
No.
I think an hour 30 was the perfect amount of time. But, it's always like that what if of what
It's
this would be like.
Interesting, to say
Yeah.
the least.
In your case, do you have anything else?
Not really. I think we've covered basically everything I wanted to talk about.
All right. Then I guess the last thing, because it just popped up to me, is the acting's pretty good.
Yeah, it is pretty good.
But in a layered way.
Mm-hmm.
Like the acting in the 2004 segment feels like it's fake, and then the stuff in the Gavin segment feels more convincing, except
Mhm.
Gavin feels like he's lying, and then the stuff in the documentary feels the most realistic.
Yeah, which makes sense.
Yeah. I guess we can do recommendations then.
If you want to watch a movie about an urban legend that isn't the movie Urban Legend
Or
its
Urban
sequel,
Legends, Final Cut.
Yeah. This is a cool one because it does not focus on, like, the film Urban Legend focuses on the concept of urban legends. This is a specific urban legend that is fake, but also not, you know what I mean? And I think that's really cool.
And what I think is super cool about that, to add on a bit more, is yes, it focuses on an urban legend, but unlike something that would be like a movie about Bloody Mary or something, the urban legend is the background
Yeah.
for the whole film. And that's cool. It's kind of nice to see something that isn't just generic.
Yeah, I mean, because there are plenty of movies that take, like, oh, let's look at an urban legend like, I don't know, the Jersey Devil and just make a horror movie. And then it's just like, it doesn't work.
There's only so much you can do with a simple concept.
Yeah.
So the fact that they got more out of it's super cool.
Mhm. So, movie about an urban legend. If you like found footage movies, this is a very good found footage movie. And I think it takes a lot of what makes the found footage genre, in a lot of ways, suck, and why a lot of people don't like it, and turns it on its head and makes it a pertinent part of the movie and makes it work.
Yeah, it addresses a lot of people's issues
Mm-hmm.
directly in the film.
if you want a meta movie, we just mentioned it, but it takes a lot of what makes a found footage movie and talks about it and breaks it down and takes it in very interesting ways. And I think it works as a meta, like, mockumentary style film. And I really like that kind of movie. It's been a while since we watched a movie like that, and I liked them all when we watched them. What, like season 2 or something?
Yeah, it's been a while since we did mockumentaries, mostly because at this point we've covered a lot of found footage categories on the podcast, and
Yeah,
I feel like we do too many of them sometimes.
maybe sometimes.
Because I try to put cool ones on the board, and it's always
Yeah,
a fun time.
if you want a scary movie, this is like, I genuinely think this movie's really scary.
Yeah, it's really slow up until the time it starts to get super tense, and then
it's horrifying.
insanely tense.
This is one of the scarier films we've seen in a while, and it unsettled me a lot.
I can always tell when Bob's really scared because he goes static.
Yeah.
Like, the one big jump scare got not even a scream out of you. You did the thing where you started, like, hyperventilating.
Yeah, I was scared. This movie's scary. I just, like, it's movies like this and, like, Ghost Watch that get me.
Yeah, because
Ghost
they're
Watch fucked me
effective.
up. But that's it.
All right. I think Bob said a lot of good ones, so I'm only going to add 2, and one of those he just made is, like, if you like found footage films, this is a great example of, like, meta mockumentary stuff, which is hard to find a good example of. I mean, tonally speaking, the closest thing I can find to this film is One Cut of the Dead, and that film is very, very, very different from this. But if you like that movie, I think this is worth a fun check out. Same thing with anything like Late Night with the Devil, which Bob hasn't watched, but also like Ghost Watch, or any of our mockumentary films we've covered.
The Bay.
McPherson tapes, anything like that. I think if you enjoy those, this is also going to be in your ballpark.
Mm-hmm.
But the other thing I want to mention here, because I think it is important, is if you just want to watch like a lesser known film and have a good time, because it's always cool to check out indie directors, especially this one, because it's really sad. Like, he died not that long after making this,
And he made a really good movie.
and he make a really good movie, and I would love to have seen more stuff like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's just worth a watch because it's like, oh, this is a really good time, and more people should go and see it. That being said, you want to give it a rating?
Yeah. I think it's just been established we both like this movie.
Yeah.
We both enjoy it. And I don't know how much of that is, I think we both just like this style of film.
Oh,
which
no, that's
helps a lot.
100% that. On our One Cut of the Dead, we were geeking out, and I think your friend watched it and was like, I didn't enjoy it at all.
Well, he was like, it's not, like, he was like, you guys really, like, hyped up that movie, and it was okay. So that's why I'm like, I want to give it a really high score, but I have to look at what the movie was trying to do and how effective I really think it was at what it was going for. But even then, I think it was really effective. It's a movie about making a movie about making a movie.
About making a movie.
About making a movie.
That is a movie.
That is also a movie that is being made. And I think when you just look at the layers alone and look at the way that they cut together each individual piece to spoon feed you information as you go along to where you know what's going to happen, but the reveal is still good, I think that's worth a lot of points. And I think it's really well made. So I think I'm going to give it a 4.5. I think, like, the only thing keeping me from really, like, giving it a 5 is it's missing something. Like, I want a greater theme of some kind. You know what I mean? Like, it's right on the edge. Like, if it just did one more little thing, I could probably give it a 5, but it's missing something.
Really? I think that that background theme of, like, obsession and how, like, chasing fame can ruin you is the background theme.
Yeah, but see, I want more of that.
Okay, that's fair.
If I were to give this a 5, I think I would need more, worked in. Maybe even into, like, the Blinkman's, like, backstory and background. Maybe if we got more of that too, I would be able to give it a 5. But there's just something about it that it's lacking a half point worth of something.
That's fair. I don't know. I'm going to give it a 5.
That's fair.
I really like this film.
I also really
and,
like it.
Like Bob said, I think it does everything it sets out to do, which is a really hard task.
It is a monumental task.
And it executes it, I think, insanely well, especially at the length it has. I think that's a perfect length, even though they got 3 hours of footage. But I think the thing that maybe is helping me push it to a 5 that Bob doesn't have is I've seen this movie before.
Oh, yeah, that's fair.
And even on a rewatch, it still holds up. And I still had that whole tension building sequence, which I don't normally have with films, and I think that shows like how effective, maybe not necessarily the story is in this case, but how effectively blocked out the whole film is.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 5. I
Damn.
guess with that being said, we're gonna go to the outtakes. I don't think we have any,
Well, then we marked 2-ish.
but Bob was silent the whole film,
Yeah.
and we weren't really talking. So
No. It's one of those movies that, like, to be honest, if we had been talking the whole time, it would have ruined the movie.
oh yeah,
Because it's just so, like, tense and, like, serious and, like, scary that I just didn't want to say anything.
yeah, it feels like the mix between an actual documentary that's serious and like a high stakes scene in a movie.
Yeah. It's tough. But yeah, we'll see you guys in a minute.
See you in a minute.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Benjamin?
Well, if we did have outtakes,
Well, yeah. I mean, I don't know.
I don't think
We
so.
record this before I edit it, so I don't know.
You know, it's the same thing it's been since we did Halloween Horror Awards and stuff, but we are now only doing 3 more holiday episodes this year. Thanksgiving, which is coming out soon,
On Thanksgiving.
and then Christmas and New Year's, which will be next month. As well as that, we're working on like Evil Dead in the background. That'll release
Hopefully sometime.
probably after New
January or
Year's.
February?
Yeah. Hopefully it will have started by then. I got all the films that we
Oh,
need.
sweet.
So we are ready to go whenever we need to. That being said, usual spiel. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Apple whatever.
You were right with Apple Podcasts.
Was I?
Yeah.
It sounded weird. But if you're checking us out on any of those podcast-specific sites, please give us a quick rating or review. That's the best way for us to get out to people on those platforms. You could also, recommend us to a friend. Maybe put a little review for the podcast in a shoebox and hand it to them. It's a really good way to, hype us up, get us new listeners, and, we always appreciate that. Otherwise, if you want to support us, you can go over to YouTube. It's not the best for audio-only content, but it's pretty nice for showing us some support. We can see subscriptions, and that's a lot better than our RSS feed, which we both find confusing. So we always love seeing that support there, because it's cool to see people listening to this dinky thing. The other thing with YouTube is it does have a couple cool tools you might be interested in. There's a search button, which says you search key terms in all our episodes, so in case you're looking to see if we've covered a specific movie, that's probably the best way to do it. You could also hit the bell button, which lets you get notified whenever we post something new, because we're posting something out of our usual Friday format for our board episodes, such as this episode.
Yeah, like this one.
This is a good way to figure that out, because we don't always do a good job about telling you about that in advance,
We try.
especially specific days. And if you're not on Twitter over at Beware the Board with Bob, it's going to be kind of hard to pick up on that. But, I will say, you can go over to Beware the Board to communicate with Bob, because that's the other place to do it at. Maybe talk to Bob about some new projects you have going on,
Mhm.
and then maybe he should help support you and then spread around how real it is. Maybe you can make a documentary about you trying to make your own project.
Make a documentary about your project, which could also be a documentary. So a
And
documentary.
then I could make a documentary about Bob making that documentary.
Yeah, we could really get a cycle going.
Yeah.
Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter at Beware the Board. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything going on about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, I post a spoiler post for that week's worth of episodes, which is a hidden movie cover you can reveal, so you can watch the film before we do. So whenever you listen to the episode, you don't get any spoilers, or we're being vague about stuff, you know what we're talking about. Then on Fridays, or whatever other day an episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode on our Twitter. So if you ever miss an upload or know when someone up, there's always a link there. Last thing, we make short form content over on TikTok at Beware the Board. So if you like short form content and want to support the show, check us out over there at Beware the Board on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts.
We also occasionally make memes, although Bob doesn't post them. So,
That is out by the time this episode comes out.
you pinky promise?
You're too far for a pinky promise. I can't reach.
Yes, you can. You're just not trying.
No. But we'll see you guys next time.
See you next time.